What's up, Dragon Brood? Now that we have seen half the cards in the Strixhaven set, I kind of have to start thinking about what cards or strategies actually get better, or maybe even worse, because a lot of the cards we've seen so far. And what should you be targeting? Maybe what cards should you be going ahead and crafting now, or feel safe making, or whatever. There's a lot of things to talk about other than just the new cards as we move into the next set. All right, so the first card I want to talk about is Magda. And the reason is, well, first off, I guess when the last set came out, I actually did a Magda, like, Dwarves and Dragons deck first, and it was actually okay and it was playable, but it wasn't what I would call good. But now that may be changing, as we've seen quite a few dwarves that are actually going to be available. Not necessarily great, but there are more dwarves that are available, and that's kind of step one. But more importantly, there's multiple things that also make treasure. So if you can have more treasure just for doing other things, and then you can actually sacrifice treasure to use Magda's ability, that's awesome. But then you know what else we got? We got more dragons. So you have even more things you can go find with Magda. So pretty much the three things Magda cares about got highlighted in Strixhaven. You get more dwarves, you get more treasure, and you get more dragons to go find. This has to be better, right? Like, I can't imagine it's not. But while we're on the topic of red cards, I also want to talk about Burji, because Burji's kind of been right on the cusp of being able to do a few things, but now we've seen a few cards in the set that maybe could work with Burji, maybe even alongside something like Magda. We've seen some, I believe, the Ingus that lets you like bounce it back to hand, and that's something that could be, I wouldn't say necessarily powerful, but could generate some extra mana alongside something like Burji being there. But it looks like maybe, just maybe, they were early plants for other cards that were coming, which is something we speculated on with Magda. Now, I have to say, it feels like through the last two seasons, I have had so many people saying, help me fix my cat stack. Can you build a cat stack? I need a competitive way to make cats ladder viable. It just hasn't been a thing. Like I've said before, I've tried multiple times. The cats just got the short end of the stick versus the dogs. That's just how it goes sometimes in life and apparently also in Magic. For whatever reason, they just got the short end of the stick. However, there is a singular cat in this set that actually makes it possible that this could be playable. And that's Leonin Lightscribe. And the reason I say that is because the cat stack actually have a few ways of making tokens, especially now between the Eska's Chariot and the Mutate cat that makes the 1/1s, right? So you can usually end up with 3, 4, 5 extra tokens. But now if you can play a spell, say a pump spell or a removal spell, that turns all those into additional +1 or +2 over the course of a turn, well, now you can get much bigger attacks, maybe even survive certain sweepers. There's a bunch of different things you can do now that can make this much more of a playable deck. Now, is this singular card going to be enough to do it? Probably not. I think we're going to really be looking for another card to kind of fill in some gaps somewhere. But this goes a long way toward giving you another playable early drop that can help you get to where you want to go, because that deck also was missing good quality early plays as well. All right, poised for a comeback. Not that Shiver totally went away, but Winona. I mean, there's a ton of lore hold cards in this set. There's a lot of non-humans. There's a couple of quality humans. There's things that are getting bonuses from Magecraft or whatever that thing is. We're getting like so many things in this set that I think could support this. And again, several of the lore hold cards are just good and could quite fit into a Winona shell very well. So there's not a whole lot to really highlight here other than saying that if you are afraid to purchase some Winonas, or that, you know, you may not be able to play with some you've already crafted, or maybe you're thinking about crafting Winona, I say go for it. I think there's going to be a deck or two that actually uses the card. So really no concerns here at all. All right, this next one I'm going to say gets better, but I don't think we're quite good yet. I think we're still waiting for the D&D set, as I said multiple times here on the channel previously. But party decks, if you're a big fan of those, there are several things that fit the cleric and wizard, stuff like that, that really can boost those decks up, and they're actually just better quality creatures than what we have right now. Still, like I said, I would expect the party decks to really get their boost as we step into the D&D set in another, I guess, 3 months whenever July rolls around. But for now, this is actually going to be a step up, I believe. I think if you had a deck that was close or semi-competitive, like this is going to get you one more step toward being competitive. I don't think it's going to get you to the top tier necessarily, but it could put you near the bottom of tier 2 if you find the right build. And then next on my list are +1/+1 counters decks. I think this is another one that the concern here would be, do you still stay with the white and the green cards? Do the decks become Abzan all the time? Are you just more white-black, or are you in green-black? I mean, there are enough things it looks like coming out in Strixhaven that are black-white or black-green, and some just mono-black that actually put +1/+1s on things. And if that's the case, then maybe we do start trimming these decks, or maybe there's a couple of different versions of the deck that are playable. We know there's a lot of cards from the last year worth of Magic that actually reference +1/+1 counters, and some of those are very powerful as well. So this deck was also very close to being playable, but just came up short, I think, in just card quality. Your individual creatures weren't quite good enough without the counters on them. But now we have enough quality creatures, especially when you're talking about things like Luminarch Aspirant hanging out, that have sort of tried to fill the gap between then and now. And now we're going to be getting even a couple more quality tools and some better creatures. So this is one I'm going to keep an eye on, and I'm probably going to have a list for pretty early on in the season. And I think that's going to do it for now. Again, we still have about probably 35-40% of the set still to be revealed, so we still have more questions to answer, but I think this was a good jumping on point, or maybe jumping off point from the last set, to really start thinking about things you can do from the last set that are going to get a benefit from cards from the new set. The other reason I think this conversation is important is that you don't have to rush out and get as many of the new cards in some instances. But a lot of the times, if you have a deck that's quality, or maybe you have a deck you've been sitting on that didn't quite get there, you can start picking pieces from the new set and fill it in. So maybe you only need to craft like one set of rares and a couple of uncommons or something to make this deck work that you already have. That's a very big benefit, both from a resources perspective in Arena, but also even just from a cash or store credit or whatever standpoint, if you're trying to get an actual paper version of the deck. So I think really having this conversation and thinking about this can go a lot toward just helping you be more efficient in spending your resources, whatever that is, to make your deck's quality going into that next season, especially early on when you don't have enough cards open or have the right cards open from the new set yet. Now, I think Strixhaven's going to bring some new strategies for sure, and may even take some decks we believe we have now in a completely different direction. But I do think there's going to be enough tools for existing decks to keep you from having to like bust your budget to really stay competitive. But let me know down in the comments what you think, or what old strategies that I overlooked that might be getting a boost from what we've seen so far. Also remember, if you haven't yet, remember to like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because that helps me out, shows me that you appreciate the content, and lets you know every single time the video gets updated. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.